everyone, it's Caroline here from Aussie Cards and Crafts, and what I'd like to show you today is how to make a card box with an acetate window for cards that have got lots of dimension. Now this is one that I did for my mum last week, and I did do a YouTube video and popped it up for you. This is the 5-star card, so you've got the 5 stars there. You attach it just there. And of course I've got 97 hanging down there because it's going to be my mother's 97th birthday in April. So this is the card that I made then, and I will link the video just up the top for you. But what I now need to do, because this obviously doesn't fit into an envelope, I now need to make a display box for it. So what I tend to do is I like to be able to, when I give the person the card, I like them to be able to see through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a box for this to fit in, and it's going to have a piece of acetate there like a window. So first thing you need to do is you need to measure your card. Now this one is pretty much 5 1/4 inches. It's just shy of 5 1/4 inches, and it is 7 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write these down in black text so that you can see how I work this out. So we're looking at 5 1/4 inches by 7 inches. Okay, now to add to that, to allow your card to get into the box and out of the box without damaging it, you need to add 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so that will give 1/8 of an inch all the way around the card. Okay, so that will then bring your measurements to 5 1/2 inches by 7 1/4 inches. Okay, next what you need to do is you need to measure the depth of your card. Now this one is nearly one inch, so my depth, okay, so that one is the width, that one is the height. Now my depth in this particular one is 1 inch. So what you now need to do to ensure that your base card is big enough, you've got your 5 1/2 inch multiplied by 7 1/4, so you've got 5 1/2 plus 1 inch for one side plus 1 inch for the other side. Then you've got 7 1/4 plus 1 inch for that side plus 1 inch for the other side. So you've then got so that's 7 1/2 by 9 1/4, and that is the size. This one here and this one here is the size that you need to make your base card. Okay, so I'll put this to one side, but that is how you work it out. So we have got a 7 1/2 by 9 1/4. So 9 1/4 is there. Oh, let's do 7 1/2 first. I always find it best to do my smaller side first so that we don't waste quite as much card. And I always look at it first. And if it's 7 1/4, that's going to give us our, yep, that's perfect. So 7 1/2 by 9 1/4. So 9 1/4 is there. Okay, and they can go in my scrap bin. Next, what you need to do is you need to score at the same depth around there, and there as what you have measured. So this is going to be at 1 inch, so you're going to score. Now if your depth was only 1/2 inch, you would only score at 1/2 inch. So score. So let me grab mine is 1 inch, so I'm going to score there. 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 And there. Now I will need this again, but I'll just put it away for the time being. So what you do now is I tend to fold and burnish my score lines before I cut them, and I'll show you how to cut them in a moment. Now what you need to do is you need to grab a pair of scissors and you need to cut down along this score line to that first score line there, from this one to that first score line there, and then do the same the other end. So from there to there and there to there. So now the other thing, these are going to be your tabs to stick them down so they don't stick out. I just usually just take a little bit off, so just a little triangle off the top and the bottom, just so that it doesn't come over and it sits nice and neatly that way. So next what you want to do is you can either tape these or you can glue them. I prefer to glue them, even though I've got to hold them in place for a little bit. So you just pop, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue on the tab, on the actual tab itself, and I'll do 2 at a time. So I'll put a little bit of glue there and a little bit of glue just there, and then this fold line just here needs to line up with this edge just there. Okay, so just one there and the other one there, and you do exactly the same on the other side. And there is our the base of our card. So you will see that this actually fits in quite nicely. Okay, and it's a little bit of room to move around. I did make it slightly bigger because of the bow, but yeah, it fits nicely. So that is the bottom done. I'll leave that there so that we can let it dry. The top I'm actually going to do in pink. Okay, so with the top, what we need to do is we need to do slightly different measurements. Now, obviously, for something to fit over the top of that, it's going to have to be slightly bigger than that. So we've got to allow for those in our measurements. So what we do is we're going to add just 1/8 of an inch. So what we now need is our the final size that we had, which is this one here and this one here. So we've got 7, so this is the top of box. So we had the 7.5 there. We need now to add 1/8 of an inch. So that will now bring that one to 7 5/8 of an inch. And the next one is 9 1/4 inches, and we're going to add once again 1/8 of an inch to that, so that is going to make that 9 3/8 of an inch. Okay, if you're not good at doing the 1/8 of an inch, just put 1/4. It really doesn't matter. It's just going to mean it'll be a little bit looser, but I know some people do get confused with the 1/8 of an inch. So what I now need is for a 9 3/8 and a 7 5/8. So I'll grab my cutting board again. So 7 5/8, because I tend to do the smallest one first. and 9 3/8. 9 3/8 is there. Okay. Now, just one little point there. If you didn't want the top of your box to come right down to here, you might want to take a 1/2 inch off all the way around. So it might have then been 7 1/8 by 8 7/8. But I want mine to come right down. So it's up to you, whichever way you want to do it. Okay, once again, we now need to score this at the same measurement as what our depth was. So our depth was 1 inch. We now need to score this at 1 inch. If you are have decided to do a smaller lid, so not as deep, if let's say you wanted to do a 3/4 inch, so it came down to maybe there, you would score at 3/4 of an inch and you would adjust this accordingly. Okay, so I'll grab my score tool out again. It's at 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and, oh, that wasn't very clever, 1 inch. Okay. Now, what we need to do, we'll put that away now, is we now need to get our pencil and our ruler. And we need to measure in 1/2 inch all the way around from that score line. So what I will do is I will put a little pencil mark there. And don't forget, these are going to be on the inside and they can be rubbed out, so don't panic too much. So make your 1/2 inch marks. Okay. Once you've got your marks there, just lightly draw your lines. Okay. Grab yourself your blade, and what you've got to do is you've got to cut from the cross where that pencil is crossed over, so there, down to there, across to here, up to there, and then across to there again. So effectively you're taking this whole rectangle out. Okay, so there we have it. There is our aperture. I just grab an eraser and rub out the pencil marks now. It is going to be on the inside of the box, but it doesn't really matter. I still like to have them invisible. Now what we need to do is we now need to just cut a piece of acetate to fit in here. So the easiest way to do that is just to measure just shy of those score lines. So I'm going to do mine 5.5 by 7 1/4. Okay. This one is actually very, very flimsy because it's a heat resistant one. So, but it is what I have got at the moment. So I'm going to use red tape for this one, and I am going to put the red tape all around the edge of the acetate here. I'm using red more so you can see it rather than for me. Okay, so once your acetate is on there, you then need to stick that on to there. And whatever you do, just make sure that your acetate is no bigger than your actual, it's got to fit within the confines of those score lines there. This one only just does, but it's just the size that it was. So So let's take the top of these off. I'll just do 2 at a time, I think. So that can go just there. And just there. Next, what we need to do is we need to fold and burnish our score lines like we did last time. So there is our score line. So fold it over, burnish it, and you're going to cut it and trim it exactly and glue it exactly the same way you did the bottom. And if we get our base now, we'll just leave that just to one side at the moment. We get our base and put our card in there. Okay. And then you can see we can put our lid on. And there we go. There's our box. Now, I personally am going to do a little bit of gold down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my my cutting board again, and because I've got gold on the pink there, I would just like to have gold running down the sides. So I'm only going to use them at 1/4 inch. So I'm going to grab 1/4 inch. Yeah, 1/4 inch will be fine. So I am going to have 4 lots of 1/4 inch. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put them in the centre there. I'll trim it off afterwards. I'm going to put it right to the end. So I'm just going to glue those down. Now, to do that, I am going to use a different glue. I'm going to use my Cosmic Shimmer glue, if it comes out. And there we have it. Now, if you want to put some more, another bow up there, either in white or it's up to you. I'm not going to on this particular one. I'm just going to wrap it up for her and give it to her like that. But it fits lovely. It's easy. Okay, now if you wanted a more sturdier one, you can go to this one. I use, I think, 300 GSM. I do sometimes do them in 600 GSM. But this one is a sturdy card, so I just didn't think it really needed it. So I've allowed for the ribbon just there. So I can pop the tails underneath and pop that in there. And then there's my lid that fits on beautifully. And there is my card that I'm going to give to my mum. Thank you for joining. I hope you actually get some benefit out of that. All of the instructions I've actually typed out and I will put below. Okay, now the card that this one has got the measurements for is for this one, but it does tell you how to do it. It says measure your card, and in this case it's 7 by 5 1/4. And the depth was 1 inch. But if your height is 7 inches and your card is, the width is only 5 inches, you just change it accordingly. And if your depth was only 1/2 inch, you would change that accordingly. So I'm sure that as you work down, it's very, very, very simple. But I think it's a lovely way of displaying your cards. I might put a few little gems up here. I haven't got them out at the moment, so I won't do them right at the moment, but or have I? No, I don't have them with me at the moment, but I might put a few more little gems up there. But I think it's a nice way of displaying your cards. Please give me a thumbs up below if you've enjoyed it, and maybe subscribe to my channel. I will in other times show you how I make envelopes, and I do another kind of a box as well. But this one I think is probably the one that most people have asked for when they've seen some of my cards. So yep, give me a thumbs up and maybe subscribe, and by all means you will see all of these things over on the Facebook channel, which is Aussie Cards and Crafts. Please come on over and let's see what you've been up to. I hope you give this a go, and I look forward to seeing some of your makes on the channel. Until then, happy crafting. Thank you.